Hello and welcome to Inside Iraq. I'm Jassim Azzawi. The war on Gaza has rekindled memories of the U.S. campaign of shock and awe on Iraq. Iraq under Saddam Hussein once led Arab opposition to Israel. But today, Iraqi leadership is strangely muted over the Israeli onslaught on Gaza. Ordinary Iraqis may see little difference between the Israeli and American occupations. The images of death and destruction from Gaza raise the specter of past battles in places like Baghdad and Fallujah. So why the noticeable hush from Iraqi leaders? Has Iraq abandoned the Palestinian cause, or is it too bogged down in its own problems?
As the war on Gaza continues, reaction in the Arab world has been gradually building into a consensus of outrage. The Arab street was quick to respond, but some leaders in the region took a little longer. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas was at first criticised for not showing enough sympathy for the people in Gaza. For its part, Egypt initially blamed Hamas for the current violence. But Arab leaders have begun voicing ever greater concern and protest. But the response from Iraqi officialdom has been a muted one. Iraq's government called for a ceasefire, saying the attacks had left behind many victims, hardly the sort of fiery language Iraq was once known for. In 1990, Saddam Hussein had threatened to burn Israel. He claimed that Iraq was ready, in his words, to put an end to Zionism. But Iraq today is a very different place, a place where Iraqi leaders are expected to stay in line with US political interests in the Middle East. Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki drew a sharp rebuke from US congressmen when he dared to openly criticize Israel's bombardment of Lebanon in the 2006 war. Insiders believe that al-Maliki is personally keeping quiet on the current conflict in Gaza so as not to annoy the Americans. The closest thing to any statement from him came through his Dawa party, which called on Islamic countries to cut relations with Israel. But it was important that Maliki has said nothing himself in public. Anger and protests among ordinary Iraqis have taken place. This week, supporters of anti-American Shia leader Muqtada Sadr protested in Baghdad, burning Israeli and American flags. Last week, a protest took place in Mosul, organised by the Sunni Iraqi Islamic Party. This rally was cut short when a suicide bomber killed one and injured 16 others. Israel's war on Gaza is likely to have long-term repercussions on the political stability of the Middle East. It seems unlikely al-Maliki can continue to keep his distance and his silence without some backlash at home.
To discuss the war on Gaza and any potential connections with the war on Iraq, I'm joined from Tel Aviv by former Israeli ambassador to the US, Zalman Shuval, and from London by Saad Naji Jawad, a professor of political science at Baghdad University, and here in the studio by Rami Khouri, editor-at-large of the Lebanese newspaper, the Daily Star, and a director of Issam Faris Institute at the American University in Beirut. Gentlemen, welcome to Inside Iraq. Zalman Shuval, let me start with you. Critics of Israel as well as Arab nationals, they are looking at the war on Gaza and they see the same stamp, the same finger in both wars. They say the people who started this war on Gaza were absolutely instrumental in prodding and instigating the Bush administration to invade Iraq. How do you respond to that?
First of all, I have criticism of your caption. There's no war on Gaza. There's a war in Gaza. There's a war on Hamas. And there's a difference between these two things. Look, Jewish people are supposed to run the world, which of course is nonsense, and it's a tragic mistake. Israel didn't have any role in the decision of the Bush administration to fight the war, to start the war in Iraq. It's pretty ridiculous, I think. I can tell you for a fact that Israel at the time, most Israeli politicians or military people, were quite unhappy with the American decision to go at Iraq, because our main worry was and is Iran. And I can tell you from my own experience, I made a visit to Washington at that time, and I spoke privately to one of the most senior people in the White House. And he said, I will not forgive you, the Israelis, because you're talking all the time about Iran. We want to concentrate on Iraq. So certainly Israel had nothing to do with it.
Saad Naji Jawad, is that your recollection? I remember very well after September 11 and for almost 2 years, the articles in Haaretz and Ma'arif, senior Israeli officials. It is time to get rid of Saddam. It is time to punish the person who lobbed missiles at Israel.
Well, you know,
well, Jassim, this
is a question to Saad Naji Jawad, Ambassador.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to interfere and say that certainly Saddam Hussein was nobody's blue-eyed boy.
Well, Jassim,
everybody, I think, even in the Arab world, was happy to get rid of him, but it was not on Israel's instigation.
Okay. We have heard all these allegations long ago, and these Israeli fallacies are going through all the media now and then. I think if you go back to the last visit of Mr. Olmert to the United States when he met Mr. Bush, he personally said, "Thank you, Mr. President, for getting us rid of the threat of Saddam Hussein." Second thing was that the Israelis were pushing very hard to a war against Iraq because they regarded the Iraqi army and the Iraqi state as the main enemy of the Israeli state. So this is not only an allegation, it was a truth. And now, when you see the presence of the Israelis in Iraq, when you live in Iraq and you see this presence of the Israelis and you see how they managed to destroy this country, you can understand the intentions of the Israelis. The second thing is, it's not only the Israelis are doing that to the Iraqis. It's the Americans, of course, and the Bush administration and the new conservatives, but they were very much held by people like Wolfowitz and the others who were also regarded as loyal Jews to the Israeli state.
Thank you, Saad.
I think the Israeli print in the war in Iraq is very clear. The second point, if you just let me say, there is a war on Gaza. There is no war on Hamas.
That's the point I would like to take with Rami Khouri. I am puzzled. Hold on just a second. I am puzzled by what the ambassador said. There is war in Gaza. There is no war on Gaza. Is that how you look at it, Rami?
I differ with him.
There clearly is an attack on Gaza by Israel, a massive attack. But I think to put things in historical context, the Israelis have been attacking almost everybody in the region that they can attack. They've attacked Lebanon, they've attacked Palestinians, Gaza, West Bank, Iraq. They'd like to do something in Iran. They don't hesitate, Syria. They don't hesitate to attack wherever they feel they need to attack. And I think the important thing is to understand that we have in the Gaza Palestinian-Israeli situation, which is a little bit different from the U.S. and Iraq, or it's really the Anglo-American attack on Iraq. But in Gaza and Israel, there's a war going on. The Palestinians and the Israelis have been fighting a war for over 60 years. It's not a one-sided operation. They're both fighting each other. And the thing that's really different is that for the first time, you have Palestinians who are seriously fighting back against Israel, as people did in Lebanon and Hezbollah in 2006. So the equation is changing, and there's a different political framework now. So I think we need to understand the exact Israeli-Palestinian situation in a slightly different context than Iraq. The common element is the U.S. and Israel together have been identifying foes and trying to beat them militarily for 50, 60 years. And the only thing they've done is created stronger foes who fight back. So we need to find non-military solutions to these problems.
There is one major difference also, Zalman Shoval, between the Israeli and the U.S. Operations in Iraq and in Palestine. And that is the U.S. this year is pretty much packing and leaving a residual force, but pretty much the occupation perhaps symbolically is finished, while Israel is going to be in the West Bank and perhaps even in Gaza now with the reoccupation for decades to come. That's a major difference, and nobody can see an end to it.
There's a major difference, but not the way you put it. First of all, I don't think that Israel has been attacking every Arab state in the neighborhood. I think we have been attacked by every Arab state in the neighborhood since 1948. And
well,
even this
there's been a war, but there's a war. They're attacking each other.
This present situation,
you haven't been sending us popcorn.
In Gaza was caused by 8 years of missiles being shot at Israeli civilian centers. And when this so-called, ceasefire or whatever you're going to call it, broke down because Hamas stopped it, on one day, they fired 80 missiles into civilian places in Israel. So we didn't attack, we were attacked.
Yeah, but Israel
and
hasn't...
the differences between Israel, differences, if you let me just finish, there are many differences between Israel and America. Israel is small, America is big, but there's a major difference. Look, about Gaza, 3 years ago, Israel completely withdrew from Gaza.
It
Many
didn't
people
completely withdraw.
It
was not a withdrawal from Gaza.
Civilians, military, camps, everything.
Right.
What was the response? The response
no,
was
no,
missiles.
no, I'm sorry.
So
Ambassador.
There was daily attacks on Gaza and daily killing of people in Gaza, claiming that you're killing Hamas people. There were daily bombing of Gaza since you have left Gaza. This is not true. In 1956, the Arabs or Egypt did not attack Israel. Israel attacked Egypt in 1956. In 1967, Egypt did not attack Israel, but Israel attacked Egypt after a long plan. This is not true. I think you are an ambassador. If you want to speak the truth, please speak the truth.
Gentlemen, I'm going to have to take a break. Gentlemen, we'll continue this discussion after the break.
67. The truth will make us free. I always speak the truth. But you know, there are different views about truth. You know that.
This is not the truth,
Gentlemen,
Mr. Ambassador.
I'm going to have to take a break. We'll continue this discussion afterwards. When we come back, I'm going to ask Ambassador Chauvel about the common denominator between the occupation of Iraq and Palestine. Stay with us.
I asked the Iraqi resistance to engage in revenge operations against the United States, the biggest partner of the Zionist enemy. Muqtada al-Sadr, Iraqi Shia cleric and leader of Mahdi army.